So Pastor Chad, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
As your fellow staff, I know how busy you are. I would really sincerely appreciate you spend time with us. As you know, since October 7th, this tragedy, of course, the whole world was break out and a lot of opinions and different view about this war. And some people might choose to stand with Israel. Some people might choose to stand with Hamas. To be honest, we don't really have a say over them because they make decisions over their own, value. Mm-hmm. But something shocking us is in Chinese Christian community, when they facing this deal and we realize they have such a poor understanding of Israel. And many of them really just don't even know how to react, which side they should choose. And so during this time, we collect about 10 or 11 questions. Mm-hmm. So we would like to use this opportunity, since you are a Messianic pastor and you grew up in the Messianic congregation, you are Israeli citizen, and you're leading probably largest Messianic congregation in this area. So we would like you to give us some opinion of the question that we collect.
Sure. I think it's the beginning of it.
Okay.
I think that we have to think of prophecy being fulfilled maybe in stages at times. The people of Israel, the Jewish people returning to the land of Israel, is prophesied. But we also have a prophecy about where the borders will be. And right now, the current legal borders of Israel do not match the biblical definition of the borders of Israel. It's close, but it doesn't match exactly. So I think the peoplehood coming back to the land, the government being established, Israel being an independent nation, having a concept where Judaism is at the center of our worship and our families, is all moving in the right direction of fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. But if I were to look at all of the prophetic scriptures as a collective whole, mm-hmm. I would see that the land definition from this mountain to this mm-hmm. river, and from this sea to this river, that entirety is not yet fulfilled. Maybe it will be fulfilled soon, mm-hmm. but in saying that, it's a process in motion, but I do believe that this is an ordained time mm-hmm. where Israel has moved into the plan of God for the end of the age.
Great, thank you so much. The question really behind this, it's in Chinese community, there's a conspiracy talking about the current Israel is not true Israel. And from their bloodline and from a religious perspective, they say they are not truly the Israel that God prophesied intend to establish. Mm-hmm.
Well, the challenge there is when you talk about the persecution history of the mm-hmm. Jewish people. Would somebody like Hitler, mm-hmm. who wanted to exterminate the Jews, or someone like Hamas, mm-hmm. who wants to exterminate the Jews, they believe it's real Israel. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to exterminate the Jews. So they believe that these are the Jewish people. Mm-hmm. We believe that there are consistent bloodlines. Mm-hmm. We can do DNA testing, and there's enough evidence to say that there's a continuity of family line. What we don't have enough scientific evidence for today is to determine which tribe is each person from. But we do have a continuity of the Jewish religion. Mm-hmm. We have a continuity of the land and its history. And we have a continuity of the persecution that has fallen upon the Jewish people no matter where they lived in the world, mm-hmm. and now they're in Israel and their descendants are in Israel. So if I'm just looking at the collective facts, I'm going to say that the Jewish people in Israel right now, and others around the world, but the Jewish people in Israel are, as much as we can determine, the descendants of the Jewish people of the Bible.
What does it mean in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3? I will bless those who bless you, descendants of Abraham. How do we interpret this promise when so many people who stood with Israel were persecuted during World War II?
In Genesis 12, when God is making that covenant agreement with Abraham, He's not making it only with him. It says to you and your descendants. It goes on to say in chapter 12, chapter 17 and beyond, I will make you into a great nation. I will bring a multitude of people from you. You will have a covenant child with your wife Sarah, not with Hagar, but with Sarah. I will give you a land, and then I will bless the entire world through you. So you have to then think about, how is the whole world blessed through Abraham? Well, first of all, the Messiah Yeshua came through Abraham. So therefore, the whole world is already blessed because we got the Messiah. But there's more than that. The laws of God, the morality of the earth, the Judeo-Christian ethic of the world that holds the world together, comes from the line of Abraham. Abraham already had laws, statutes, commandments, and precepts. This is listed in the scriptures. So he was already an example of walking out these godly commands. And walking out these godly commands shows the rest of the societies how they can also be blessed if they will follow these same statutes. Now, you could jump forward and say the laws of Moses are actually helpful here, and I agree with you. So the more a country believes in Yeshua, the more a country follows the law of Moses, the more a country follows the Judeo-Christian ethic of morality, that country is blessed. Even if they don't become believers, or even if they don't become Christians, they are still practicing some of these covenantal laws that God blessed Abraham with. And so that's another way that all of the world can be blessed through Abraham, through the laws, through the example, and through the giving of the Messiah.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent answer. And so also in our words, when it was mentioned about Israel as a nation that God formed it together and God drew the line, the boundary of this whole land. So is that means Israel didn't ask for it, but God gave it to them?
Well, if you go back to the covenant with Abraham, Abraham did not ask for land. As a matter of fact, Abraham didn't even live in this land, right? He lived in Ur of the Chaldeans, and then later he went north to up the sea of the Euphrates and Tigris River, and then he came back down southwest to Israel. Back then it wasn't called Israel, it was called the land of Canaan, or the land of the Canaanites. So he didn't ask for a land, but it was a grant, it was a gift from God based on a loving relationship that he had with Abraham, and based on Abraham's faithfulness to obey and follow God, even in the few of the laws that he already had. He was willing to obey the laws, he was willing to tell others about him, he was living his extended community under these godly principles, and he was believing in righteousness that God would give him a prophesied son. So in all of those examples, Abraham is not perfect, but he is following faithfully after God, and God gave him the land promise. It wasn't something Abraham naturally asked for.
So in other words, those Christians that question Israel's right to stay in this land, they actually are they are against God's will.
Yeah, I think if you find yourself thinking the Jewish people and the nation of Israel should not be in the land of Israel right now, you're having to think on one of two directions. You're either thinking, I don't agree with God's covenant gift. Okay, so that would be hard for a Christian to think. Or you would say, I don't believe this is the legitimate land of Israel. But let me tell you where that comes from. In Judaism, there is a section of Judaism, not all Jewish followers, but there's a section of Judaism that believes the Messiah is the only one who can proclaim the new Israel, the nation of Israel. And so without the Messiah being present, no one else has the authority to pronounce the official nation of Israel. I've talked to many Jewish rabbis about this. I've debated them, and I've tried to understand their position and who do they think should be in charge of the land of Israel right now. But ultimately, that's where the belief system comes from, but it does not come from the Bible. It comes from the Talmud. So it doesn't come from the authority of the Word of God. It comes from Jewish historical writings. So we have to be very careful about this, that we don't fall into it, and we might say, well, the Messiah didn't come and say this is the land, and the land doesn't match the biblical boundaries yet. But I would remind all of our listeners, just because something doesn't meet all of the requirements at the beginning doesn't disqualify it from its future. For instance, you could say of the global body of Messiah, the churches around the world, do we live exactly how the Lord told us to live? The answer is no.
Correct.
We fail on a regular basis. Does that mean God kicks us out and disregards us and throws us away? No. We have a good beginning of what we will become. And I think Israel follows that same pattern. It is a good beginning right now of what it will become.
Man, thank you so much, Pastor Chad. It clarifies a lot of questions that the people have been asking or even debating in Chinese community.